After a long business trip, a millionaire returns home expecting to find his son safe, but the image that greets him is devastating. The boy, barefoot and hungry, is asking the neighbor for food. He discovers that while he was away, the stepmother imposed on the boy a routine of fear, silence, and neglect. If this beautiful story of overcoming adversity and love has interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. Continuing. Ethan Blackwood's private jet landed at Heathrow Airport after an exhausting business trip across Asia. At 42, the London-based entrepreneur had consolidated his technology empire with the opening of 5 new branches in Tokyo, Seoul, and Hong Kong. His expression, despite his fatigue, revealed satisfaction. Successful ventures meant more stability for his only treasure, Leo, his 7-year-old son. His driver was waiting on the private tarmac. "Welcome back, Mr. Blackwood. Was it a good trip?" "Productive, Josh. 3 weeks away from home is a long time, but it was worth it," Ethan replied, settling into the back seat of the luxury SUV. "And Leo? Any news?" "I haven't heard anything specific, sir. Mrs. Charlotte only mentioned that everything is calm." Ethan smiled, imagining his son running into his arms as soon as he arrived at the upscale gated community in Richmond Hill. 3 weeks away was a necessary sacrifice, he thought. After his first wife's untimely passing when Leo was just 2, Ethan dedicated himself to building a perfect life for the boy. Charlotte entered his life 2 years ago, bringing beauty and apparent stability. She was a marketing director, successful and socially admired. The marriage seemed to have completed the puzzle of their lives. Traffic on the M25 motorway was flowing reasonably well for a Thursday afternoon. Ethan took the opportunity to reply to some messages on his phone, but his thoughts were on the small collection of gifts in his suitcase. An articulated robot from Japan, illustrated books from Korea, and a small drone from China. He knew Leo would be fascinated. "We're almost there, sir," Josh announced, turning into the entrance of Arbor Heights Estate. The SUV drove along the main avenue, passing imposing mansions until it reached the Blackwood residence. The contemporary facade with large glass windows reflected the afternoon sun. Josh parked and Ethan got out, anxious. The housekeeper, Maggie, opened the door before he even rang the doorbell. "Mr. Blackwood, it's good to have you back." "How was your trip?" "Everything's fine, Maggie." "Where's my boy?" An uncomfortable silence settled. Maggie averted her gaze. "Mrs. Charlotte went out for a charity event. She said she'd be back around 7. And Leo? He must be in his room. I'll call him." Ethan frowned, finding the employee's behavior odd. He left his suitcases at the entrance and went upstairs, eager to surprise his son. The hallway leading to Leo's room was silent. He knocked lightly on the door. "Leo?" "Son, Daddy's home." Silence. He opened the door slowly and found the room impeccably tidy, but empty. The toys seemed untouched, the bed made with military precision. "Maggie!" he called, coming down the stairs. "Where's Leo?" The housekeeper wrung her hands in her apron. "Sir, perhaps he's by the pool area." Ethan searched the entire house, the garden, the pool. No sign of the boy. A growing unease began to settle in his chest. "How long has it been since you last saw my son?" he asked, his tone hardening. Since breakfast, sir. Mrs. Charlotte said he was grounded and should stay in his room." "Grounded? Why?" "She didn't explain, sir. Lately, Leo has been spending a lot of time in his room." His phone rang. It was Phil, the estate's security guard. "Mr. Blackwood, you just arrived, right?" "Yes, I'm looking for my son." "Sir, I think you should come to House 32. It's Mrs. Davies's house." Ethan's heart pounded. House 32 was on the other side of the estate. "I'm on my way." In less than 2 minutes, he crossed the immaculate gardens of the estate to reach the indicated residence. Phil was waiting for him at the gate. "What happened?" "You'd better come in, sir." Ethan was led to the back veranda. There, sitting at a garden table with a gray-haired lady, was a small figure that made his heart stop. Leo. Barefoot, wearing pajamas too thin for the cool day, eating a bowl of soup as if he hadn't seen food in days. "Leo?" The boy looked up. For an instant, a flash of joy appeared in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by something Ethan would never expect to see. Fear. "Daddy?" the boy whispered, shrinking in his chair. Ethan approached slowly, kneeling beside his son. Only then did he notice how much Leo had lost weight. His cheeks, once plump, were sunken. His wrists thin, his eyes with pronounced dark circles. "What happened to you, son?" "He comes here often, Mr. Blackwood," said Mrs. Davies, a retired teacher who lived alone. "Always hungry, always asking for food." "I thought you knew." "What do you mean? Since when?" "It started about 2 months ago. At first I found it strange, but he said the maid forgot to make lunch. Then I realized the story didn't add up." She hesitated. "Last week he was so hungry he cried when he saw the bread I offered." Ethan felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. He turned to Leo and gently touched his face. "Son, why didn't you tell me?" The boy lowered his eyes, trembling. She said if I told anyone you'd send me away because I was too much trouble." "Who said that? Charlotte?" Leo nodded, tears in his eyes. "She locks the kitchen door," he continued in a low voice. "I can only eat when she lets me. She said I was too fat, that I needed discipline." Ethan carefully hugged his son, feeling every protruding bone in that fragile body. A cold fury settled in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "No one is going to send you away. My son, never. You are safe now." He thanked Mrs. Davies and picked Leo up, surprised by the boy's lightness. As they walked back, he noticed other details. His feet with small cuts, his hands dry, his gaze constantly checking if anyone was watching. At home, Ethan asked Maggie to prepare a warm bath and a nutritious meal. While Leo ate slowly in the kitchen, he called Josh. "Pack a small bag for Leo and put it in the car. Don't tell anyone." The driver nodded without asking questions. Ethan called his lawyer, Dr. Morris Peterson. "I need to see you urgently. I'm taking my son to the flat in Canary Wharf. I can't say more over the phone." While he waited, he watched Leo eat slowly, as if he feared the food would disappear at any moment. His heart tightened with each hesitant gesture from his son. "Let's go for a drive, Leo, just the two of us like old times." The boy looked suspicious. "But she'll be angry when she comes back." "Don't worry about that," Ethan reassured him, trying to control the growing anger. "Father and son need time together after a long trip." He helped Leo put on suitable clothes and was shocked to realize how loose they all were. In the boy's closet, he found only items organized for children's fashion shows and social events. Nothing comfortable, nothing appropriate for a child's everyday life. As they left through the back door towards the garage, Ethan realized he was breathing more easily for the first time since he had arrived. In the back seat of the car, Leo leaned back, exhausted. "Where are we going, Dad?" "To a safe place, son, where no one will leave you hungry or afraid again." As the car left the estate, Ethan looked in the rearview mirror and saw Leo struggling to keep his eyes open, finally feeling protected. He made a silent decision at that moment. He would never let his son suffer again, no matter the cost. The flat in Canary Wharf was a discreet refuge Ethan maintained for business meetings and contingencies. Spacious and comfortable, he never imagined it would one day be a shelter for his own son. While Leo slept soundly in the bedroom, Ethan received Dr. Maurice Peterson, his lawyer and longtime friend. "This is very serious, Ethan," Maurice said, after hearing the full account. "We have a clear case of neglect and psychological abuse, but we need strong evidence before any legal action." "Evidence? You saw the state of my son. He's malnourished, scared, traumatized. And that's devastating, my friend." "I believe you, but knowing Charlotte and her social influence, she'll claim you're fabricating all this to keep her away from the child. She'll say Leo has always been thin, that you're exaggerating." Ethan ran his hands over his face, exhausted. "What do you suggest then?" "First, we need a detailed medical report. Then testimonies. The neighbor who fed Leo, the housekeeper, anyone who witnessed something suspicious. And it would be ideal to have physical evidence of her behavior." A knock on the door interrupted the conversation. It was Leo, his hair disheveled from sleep. "Dad, I am thirsty." Ethan led him to the kitchen, briefly introducing him to Morris. As the boy drank water, the lawyer observed the evident signs of neglect, excessive thinness, fearful behavior, the way Leo checked if he had permission for every small action. "Son, Dr. Maurice is Daddy's friend. He's going to help us." Leo just nodded without asking questions. He returned to his room silently, after apologizing for interrupting, an alarming behavior for a 7-year-old. "I'll book an appointment with Dr. Lucy Barnes tomorrow," Maurice said, noting on his tablet. "She's a specialist in child health and medical forensics. As for Charlotte, keep your distance for now. Don't confront her. She needs to believe you don't know anything. Impossible. I'm not letting Leo go back to that house. And you shouldn't. Say you miss your son and want to spend a few days with him after your trip. Buy time. Meanwhile, we'll hire a private investigator. That night, Ethan improvised a simple dinner. He watched with a broken heart as Leo ate slowly, fearfully, as if he expected someone to take the plate away at any moment. You can eat as much as you like, son. There's plenty of food. She says I can't have seconds, that polite children eat little. That's not true, Leo. Children need to eat well to grow strong and healthy. After dinner, he prepared a warm bath. It was then that he noticed other signs of neglect. Small skin blemishes from vitamin deficiency, untrimmed nails, hair uncut for months. As he put on his pajamas, Leo asked in a low voice, "Is she going to come get me here?" "No, son. You're safe with me. She gets angry when I don't do what she tells me. She says I'm a burden to you, that you only tolerate me because you have to." Ethan felt his blood boil but maintained his outer calm. "Leo, look at me. You are the most important person in my life. Nothing is more precious to me than you. Never believe anyone who tells you otherwise." The words seemed to hit Leo deeply. His eyes filled with tears, and he hugged his father tightly as he hadn't done in a long time. The next morning, Ethan's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Charlotte alternated between sweet questioning and finally, accusatory messages. "Why did you take Leo without telling me?" "I'm worried." "Ethan, for goodness sake, answer." "Where are you?" "If you don't answer me in 10 minutes, I'm calling the police." He finally replied, following Maurice's advice. "We're doing a father-son outing after my long trip. We'll be away for a few days. Leo misses me and I miss him too." Charlotte's reply came quickly. "You should have told me. I'm hurt by your attitude. Leo has school, commitments." Ethan ignored the last message and took Leo to Dr. Lucy Barnes's office, a renowned pediatrician and specialist in child neglect. The doctor conducted the examination with gentleness and professionalism, gradually gaining Leo's trust. "I'll need to run some additional tests," she said, after examining the boy. "But I can already confirm that he presents a clear picture of moderate malnutrition, vitamin deficiency, and signs of chronic stress. Is that enough for a lawsuit? I will prepare a detailed report. But Mr. Blackwood, what worries me more are the behavioral signs. Leo exhibits typical characteristics of children suffering from systematic emotional deprivation. The way he asks permission for everything, how he constantly checks if he's pleasing, his fear of speaking. These are classic signs. As they talked in the waiting room, Leo flipped through a children's magazine, oblivious to the gravity of the situation. "What do you recommend now, doctor?" "Stabilizing his physical health is the first step. Adequate nutrition, vitamins, rest. But equally important is emotional health. I suggest you consult Dr. Beatrice Campbell, a child psychologist. She can help Leo process this experience in a healthy way." As they left the office, they met Ronald Evans, the investigator hired by Maurice. Tall and discreet, he looked more like an executive than the former police officer he was. "I've already started the basic background check on Mrs. Charlotte Blackwood," he said, as they walked to the parking lot. "We'll need access to the residence to install monitoring equipment. How will we do that without raising suspicion?" "I have a contact at the security company that services your estate. We can schedule a routine system update." That afternoon, while Leo rested in the flat, Ethan received the first call from Maggie, the housekeeper. Her voice trembled on the phone. "Mr. Blackwood, I need to speak with you, but I can't over the phone. Mrs. Charlotte is furious. She turned the whole house upside down, looking for documents, jewelry, anything valuable. She's saying you kidnapped the boy. Maggie, did you always notice something wrong with Leo's treatment?" A heavy silence. Then, in a low voice, "Many things, sir. I tried to help as I could, giving him food secretly. But she threatened to fire me if I interfered with the boy's education. Leo would be locked in his room for hours, sometimes a whole day with little water and food. Why didn't you ever tell me, Maggie?" "She monitored all my calls to you, sir. She was always nearby when you called to speak with Leo. And," her voice faltered, "she threatened that if I told anything, she would make sure I'd never get a job in London again. I have 3 grandchildren to raise, sir." Ethan felt a mixture of compassion and indignation. "I understand, Maggie. Don't worry. I'll help you. Meanwhile, if you can gather any evidence, photos, videos, Notes, it will be very useful. That night, he received another important call. Mrs. Davies, the neighbor who fed Leo. Mr. Blackwood, I'm worried. Your wife came to my house today, very agitated. She asked if I had seen Leo, if I knew where you had taken him. When I mentioned that the boy often came here asking for food, she became livid. She said I was lying, that Leo had eating problems and was forbidden to eat outside the house. What did you tell her? I said I must be confusing the children, that maybe it was another boy. I didn't like her look, Mr. Blackwood. There was something dangerous. You did well, Mrs. Davies. Please, if she comes back, stick to the same story. It's for Leo's protection. When he hung up, Ethan found his son standing at the living room door, hugging his pillow. Dad, is she going to take me away from you? The question broke his heart. He picked Leo up and sat with him on the sofa. No, son. Never again. Daddy is here now and everything will be all right. Promise? I promise. Now how about we watch a movie together? You choose. The timid smile that appeared on Leo's face was like a ray of sunshine after the storm, small, fragile, but full of hope. Ethan knew the battle would be long and difficult. But looking at his son huddled against his chest, he was sure he would fight with all his might. On the other side of the city, Charlotte furiously typed on her phone, activating contacts, preparing her version of the story. She would not lose her status, her comfort, her luxurious life. If Ethan wanted war, he would get war, and she had powerful weapons at her disposal. A week had passed since Ethan rescued Leo from the mansion in Richmond Hill. In the flat in Canary Wharf, a new routine was established. Breakfast together, sessions with psychologist Dr. Beatrice, nutrient-rich lunch, and quiet afternoons with games and reading. Leo slowly gained weight, and a timid sparkle began to return to his eyes. That morning, while Leo drew in the living room under the supervision of Rose, the hired caregiver, Ethan met with his defense team in the makeshift office. We have significant progress, Ronald, the investigator announced, opening his laptop. The cameras installed in the mansion captured alarming behaviors from Charlotte over the past 5 days. On the screen, images of the house appeared. Charlotte was seen rummaging through Ethan's office, photographing documents, accessing his personal computer with suspicious ease. In another sequence, she received unknown people, handing them folders. She's looking for compromising information, Dr. Maurice commented. Classic move from someone planning a counterattack. But what truly shocked Ethan were the images from Leo's room. Charlotte entered the room seemingly calm, but as soon as she closed the door, her posture changed completely. With evident anger, she began tearing drawings from the wall, throwing toys on the floor, and in a disturbing gesture, tore Leo's favorite teddy bear, the one Ethan had brought back from a trip to Denmark. My God, Ethan murmured, feeling a lump in his throat. There's more, Ronald continued, advancing to another video. This was 2 days ago. In the new sequence, Charlotte led an elegant woman through Leo's room. This is Vera Lewis, a journalist from a celebrity magazine. Observe the conversation. As you can see, Vera, the room is impeccable. All the toys Ethan buys to compensate for his constant absence. Leo has always been a difficult child, but we try so hard. Ethan travels too much, you know. The boy misses his father and transfers his anger to me, his stepmother. Classic, isn't it? The journalist noted everything, while Charlotte showed manipulated photos. Leo smiling at social events, the three of them together as the perfect family. Ethan has control issues. When things aren't exactly as he wants them, he snaps. He took my stepson without warning, prevented me from any contact. I fear for the boy's psychological well-being. Ethan turned off the video, nauseated. She's building a public narrative against me. Exactly as we suspected, Dr. Maurice confirmed. But we have our own evidence. Dr. Lucy completed the medical report yesterday. The report confirms malnutrition, vitamin deficiency, and physical signs of prolonged stress. The lawyer slid a folder across the table. Furthermore, we interviewed 3 former household employees. All confirmed the pattern of neglect. The former nanny, Julia Miller, reported that she was fired after questioning why Leo was always locked in his room. The gardener witnessed Charlotte screaming at the boy for eating without permission, and the previous cook confirmed that she received explicit orders to limit Leo's portions. Why did no one come to me to report this? Ethan questioned, guilt weighing on his shoulders. Fear, Ronald simply replied. Charlotte cultivated a powerful network of influence. She threatened to sue them, ensured they would never work in high-end homes again. And according to them, you seemed so satisfied with her, so convinced you had found the perfect stepmother, that no one would believe them. Ethan stood up, unable to contain his anguish. How had he not noticed? How could he have been so blind? We found something else, Ronald continued, accessing another folder on his computer. Financial records from the last 18 months. The documents revealed an alarming pattern, while limiting even the basics for Leo. Inferior quality clothes, minimal school supplies, severe dietary restrictions. Charlotte maintained exorbitant expenses for herself, luxury spa 3 times a week, shopping at international designer brands, exclusive dinners with friends at Michelin-starred restaurants, all paid with corporate cards or joint accounts. She drained almost £2 million in personal expenses in the last year, Ronald pointed out. The money doesn't matter to me, Ethan cut in. What breaks my heart is knowing my son was starving while she spent fortunes on frivolities. At that moment, the door slowly opened. Leo entered, holding a drawing. Dad, look what I made. Quickly, Ronald closed the laptop. Dr. Maurice gathered the documents, hiding them in a folder. Ethan forced a smile, kneeling to greet his son. Let me see this masterpiece. On the paper, Leo had drawn 2 figures holding hands, a tall man and a boy, in front of a simple house. In the corner of the paper, a female figure was crossed out with heavy black pencil strokes. Is that us? Ethan asked softly. Leo nodded. In our new house, far from her. Silence weighed in the room. Ethan hugged his son, exchanging meaningful glances with his team over the boy's shoulder. Very beautiful, son. Shall we put it on the fridge? When Leo left with Rose, the tension returned to the atmosphere. We need to act fast, Dr. Maurice decided. Charlotte is already manipulating public opinion. Yesterday, a note appeared in a social column, insinuating that you are going through a mental crisis after your trip to Asia, that you kidnapped your own son in a worrying episode. I won't wait any longer. I want permanent custody of Leo. I want Charlotte away from him forever. We will file the emergency petition today. The medical reports, testimonies, and recordings will be attached. But be prepared, Ethan. She will counterattack with everything. Your public image could be severely affected. I don't care about my image. I just want my son safe. That afternoon, while preparing a snack for Leo, Ethan received the first call from his mother, Mrs. Eleanor. At 67, she lived in Amersham, on a quiet country estate, and maintained regular contact with her son and grandson. Ethan, I'm worried. Charlotte called me yesterday saying terrible things. That you're unbalanced, that you took Leo without telling anyone, that you're preventing any contact between her and the boy. Mum, it's more complicated than it seems. I can't explain everything over the phone, but Leo was suffering severe mistreatment. I always suspected, Mrs. Eleanor replied, surprising her son. The last few times I visited you, Leo was different, too quiet, scared. And when I tried to bring him a cake, Charlotte intercepted, saying he was on a diet. What diet does a 7-year-old need to be on? But you seemed so enchanted with her that I didn't want to interfere. Guilt hit Ethan again. Even his mother had noticed signs. Come to Amersham, Mrs. Eleanor suggested. You and Leo can stay here while you sort this situation out. The country air will do the boy good and no one will bother you. My neighbors are discreet and the property is secure. The proposal made immediate sense. The flat in Canary Wharf, although comfortable, was still in London, where Charlotte's influence extended. A refuge in the countryside would be ideal for Leo's recovery. Great idea. Mum, I think we can go today. After hanging up, Ethan called Dr. Morris, who approved the move. Strategically, it's better indeed. It hinders any attempt she might make for unauthorized access to Leo. Furthermore, a rural environment, with fresh air and space to play, will accelerate his physical and emotional recovery. While Ethan organized the small move, Ronald arrived with new information. We discovered something concerning. Charlotte also hired a private detective, and not one of the most ethical ones. He showed a photo on his phone. This man was seen circling the building yesterday. Clive Matthews, a former police officer dismissed for improper conduct, a specialist in obtaining information through questionable means. Do you think we're being monitored? Almost certainly. Therefore, I suggest you leave today, but with maximum discretion. I'll arrange a car not linked to you or your company. Exit through the basement, use the service exit. In a few hours, a small suitcase was ready. Leo, excited about the idea of visiting his grandmother, didn't question the haste or the mystery. Are we going to see Granny's rabbits? He asked, as he got into the discreet car Ronald had arranged. Yes, son. And you'll be able to run on the lawn, swim in the lake, pick fruit in the orchard. As the driver, a trusted professional of Ronald's, drove the vehicle out of the garage, Ethan kept Leo low away from the windows, a precaution that broke his heart. What kind of world was this, where a father had to hide his own child to protect him? Finally on the road, heading towards Amersham, Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. Beside him, Leo fell asleep, exhausted by the emotional roller coaster of the past few days. On the horizon, the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink, a beauty that contrasted with the storm brewing behind them, in London, where Charlotte was preparing her next move. As the car drove along the M40 motorway, Ethan received a message from Ronald. Secrets out. She knows you've left London. Be careful. Mrs. Eleanor's country estate in Amersham was a haven of tranquility. With 3 hectares of green area, an orchard, a lake, and a colonial-style main house, the place exuded peace, exactly what Leo needed. After 2 weeks in that serene environment, the changes in the boy were already visible. His appetite had returned. His dark circles diminished, and most importantly, spontaneous smiles reappeared. That sunny morning, Leo ran across the lawn chasing Bolina, his grandmother's dog, while Ethan watched from the veranda, drinking coffee. Mrs. Eleanor approached, sitting beside her son. He's so different, she commented with tears in her eyes. When you arrived here, my heart ached. He looked like a frightened little bird, afraid even of his own shadow. Ethan nodded, squeezing his mother's hand. Thank you for taking us in, Mum. This place is exactly what Leo needs now. Son, don't blame yourself so much. You were deceived by someone who knew very well how to manipulate. I should have noticed. The signs were there. Charlotte is an excellent actress. When she came here, it was all smiles and affection with Leo, in front of you. But I noticed how his gaze changed when she approached. I tried to talk to you a few times, remember? You always said it was just stepmother jealousy, a normal thing. The conversation was interrupted by Ethan's phone ringing. It was Dr. Maurice. Good morning, Ethan. We have some developments we need to discuss in person. Can I come to Amersham this afternoon? Of course. Has something serious happened? I'd prefer to explain in person. And I'll bring Dr. Beatrice with me if you don't mind. She'd like to see how Leo is adapting to the new environment. After hanging up, Ethan felt a growing unease. Maurice's tone suggested important news, and it probably wouldn't be good. He tried to distract himself by playing with Leo, but the anxiety persisted. In the afternoon, Dr. Maurice and Dr. Beatrice arrived. While the psychologist went to the garden to talk with Leo, the lawyer led Ethan to the makeshift office in the house's library. Charlotte took the next step, Maurice said, opening his tablet. As we suspected, she filed a lawsuit alleging parental alienation. According to her, you are preventing her contact with the boy out of revenge after having discovered a supposed extramarital affair. That's absurd. I never accused Charlotte of infidelity. First mom waking. She's building a narrative, and she's using the media for it. Maurice showed an article published that morning in an influential news portal. Entrepreneur separates son from stepmother after jealousy crisis. The report, clearly biased, painted Ethan as a controlling and unstable husband who allegedly kidnapped his own son after a paranoia crisis. Charlotte was described as a dedicated wife and loving stepmother, desperate for news of her stepson. There's more, Maurice continued, showing other publications. She gave an exclusive interview to a celebrity magazine. She appears crying, showing Leo's always tidy room, with the table set for breakfast that he never had again. Ethan felt his stomach churn. The photos showed Charlotte in deliberately distressed poses, holding the torn teddy bear, now mysteriously mended, and looking melancholically out the window. She's manipulating public opinion, the lawyer concluded, creating an image of a victim, while painting you as the villain. What can we do? I don't want to expose Leo to this media circus, nor should you, but we need to respond strategically. Our preliminary hearing is scheduled for next week. The assigned judge, Judge Paul Mitchell, has a history of balanced decisions in cases involving children, which is positive for us. But public pressure can indirectly influence. Maurice paused, organizing the documents. I filed a request for a protective order based on the medical and psychological reports. We requested that any contact Charlotte has with Leo be supervised at least until the conclusion of the process. And what exactly is she asking for? Immediate shared custody, with Leo returning to the Richmond Hill residence 3 days a week. She claims that the rural environment, although charming, deprives the boy of his school routine and enriching activities. Ethan shook his head, incredulous. Leo could barely go to school when he was with her. He was constantly sick, weak, scared. Yes, and we have the school records confirming frequent absences and a decline in performance in recent months. Leo's teacher also gave an important deposition, reporting how he had become withdrawn and frequently arrived hungry. In the garden, through the window, Ethan could see Leo showing something to Dr. Beatrice, probably one of the bird nests that fascinated him so much. His son smiled, gesticulated animatedly. Her scene unthinkable just 2 weeks ago. What did Ronald discover about that detective she hired? He's been following your mother when she goes into town, probably trying to find out your exact location. Therefore, I suggest maximum discretion. No photos on social media, no records showing your location. Ethan nodded. And what about the company employees? Some know I'm here. I've already instructed your financial director to implement a confidentiality protocol. The official story is that you're on a work retreat in an undisclosed location, finalizing sensitive negotiations. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Beatrice. Her expression was positive. Leo is progressing surprisingly well. Ethan, the environment here is therapeutic in itself. Space, nature, a quiet routine, exactly what he needs now. But what about the trauma, the psychological effects of what he went through? We're working on that in our sessions. The trauma exists, I won't minimize it. But children have incredible resilience when placed in safe and loving environments. The most important thing now is to maintain the emotional stability you've managed to establish here. Dr. Beatrice opened her notebook. In the sessions, Leo has expressed his fear of going back there. He refers to the Richmond Hill house as the dark place. He drew the image of a locked door several times, clearly representing the episodes of confinement. Did he mention anything specific about Charlotte? The psychologist hesitated. Yes, and this could be legally important. Leo reported that she frequently threatened him, saying you didn't want him, that you only kept him out of obligation. She said that if he complained or told you anything, it would prove he was a burden, a problem, and you would send him away. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. My God, it's a classic form of child psychological manipulation, Dr. Beatrice explained, isolating the victim, cutting off their emotional connections, undermining their trust. Leo was being systematically alienated from you, Ethan, not the other way around. As they discussed the next steps, Mrs. Eleanor entered the room hastily. Son, I think you need to see this. She turned on the television on the wall. A popular gossip show showed live images of Charlotte arriving at a renowned London hospital, apparently in a fragile state, supported by friends. The presenter narrated with exaggerated drama. Charlotte Blackwood, wife of entrepreneur Ethan Blackwood, was admitted to St. Luke's Hospital after an emotional collapse. Close sources claim her health has deteriorated since her husband disappeared with their 7-year-old son. Doctors suspect a case of acute depression. This is a complete staging, Dr. Maurice murmured. Classic strategy to gain public sympathy. The program continued, showing Charlotte's close friends, giving emotional testimonies about how she was an exemplary stepmother, how she loved Leo like a son, and how devastated she was by the cruel and unjustified separation. Turn that off, please, Ethan requested, nauseated by the blatant manipulation. We need to respond, Maurice stated. Not in the same theatrical way, but with firmness and facts. I suggest an official statement through my office, reaffirming your commitment to Leo's well-being and explaining that the temporary distance is a medical recommendation. I don't want to expose the details of Leo's suffering publicly, and we won't, but we can state that he is under medical and psychological care, recovering from a period of stress. No direct accusations, just facts. As they discussed the best approach, Ethan's phone rang again. It was Ronald. "I have urgent information. We gained access to Charlotte's recent messages. She's planning something for tomorrow. From what I understand, she's going to try a direct approach to Leo." "What do you mean?" "She doesn't know exactly where we are. Her detective seems to have located the property. They found someone in town who knows your mother and pointed out the way to the estate." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "I'll reinforce security immediately. I've already arranged it. 2 discreet professionals are on their way. They'll arrive before nightfall. Meanwhile, keep Leo inside the house." When he hung up, Ethan explained the situation to those present. Mrs. Eleanor paled. "That woman will not lay hands on my grandson again," she stated with determination. Dr. Maurice intervened. "If she attempts any unauthorized approach, it will play in our favor in court. The judge will not look favorably upon an attempt at forced contact while a legal process is underway." "I don't want to use my son as bait," Ethan protested. "Nor should you," Dr. Beatrice agreed. "The important thing now is to protect Leo from any confrontation or stressful situation. He's finally feeling safe, and that's still fragile." At dusk, after Dr. Maurice and Dr. Beatrice had left, Ethan found Leo in his room, drawing intently. "What are you doing, son?" Leo showed the drawing, a large blue circle with colorful fish. "It's the lake here, Dad. Granny said when it gets warmer we can swim in it." "That's a great idea. You like it here, don't you?" Leo nodded vigorously. "Very much. Here I can eat when I'm hungry. I can play outside. And no one yells at me." The simplicity of those basic needs, food, play, kindness, crushed Ethan's heart. How had his son reached the point of considering this special, and not the minimum he deserved? "Son, tomorrow we're staying home all day, okay? We can build a cushion fort in the living room, watch movies, bake a cake with Granny. What do you think?" Leo smiled, but his eyes showed a flash of concern. "She's going to come here, isn't she?" Ethan swallowed hard. Even so young, his son had developed a keen perception of danger, a defense mechanism born of trauma. "Don't worry about that, Leo. We're safe here." "Promise you won't let her take me away." "I promise, son. Never again." That night, Ethan barely slept. He placed a mattress on the floor of Leo's room and remained alert, listening to every sound of the century-old house. Outside, the security guards hired by Ronald discreetly patrolled the property. The battle for Leo's well-being now extended beyond the courts and the media. It was literally at the doors of his refuge. The day dawned with a typical hill fog, enveloping the country estate in an ethereal white shroud. Ethan, who had finally fallen asleep in the early hours of the morning, woke with a start to the ring of his phone. It was Mark, one of the security guards positioned at the property's entrance. "Mr. Blackwood, we have movement on the access road. 2 vehicles approaching. A black SUV and a car that appears to be from a TV station." Ethan jumped up, checking that Leo was still sleeping soundly. "Don't let anyone in. I'm going there." He quickly dressed and went downstairs, finding his mother already awake in the kitchen. "People are coming, Mum. Stay with Leo. Don't let him leave his room when he wakes up." "I'll handle this." Mrs. Eleanor nodded with determination. "You can count on me, son. No one gets past me." Ethan walked briskly the 300 meters separating the house from the property's entrance. Arriving at the rustic wooden gate, he found Mark and Richard, the 2 security guards, in a blocking position. On the other side, exactly as predicted, was Charlotte, impeccably dressed and made up to appear frail, accompanied by her lawyer, a man in a dark suit with an arrogant expression. Just behind them, a van with the logo of a popular TV show parked, and a reporter with a microphone was already positioned for a live broadcast. "Pure theater," Ethan murmured, immediately calling Dr. Maurice. "They're here, with cameras and everything. Don't leave there. I'm on my way, 15 minutes away. Don't confront them, don't make statements. If they try to force entry, call the police immediately." Ethan hung up and kept a safe distance within the property. Charlotte, noticing his presence, began to act for the cameras. "Ethan, please. I just want to see Leo. Why are you doing this to us?" Her choked voice and precisely controlled tears would make a perfect scene for the unsuspecting public. Her lawyer stepped forward, positioning himself by the gate. "Mr. Blackwood, I am Dr. Raphael Carter, legal representative for Mrs. Charlotte. We are here to exercise my client's right to visit as the minor's stepmother. Preventing this contact will constitute parental alienation, with serious legal consequences for you, sir." Ethan remained silent, following Maurice's advice. The reporter approached, trying to capture reactions. "We are here live where a family drama that has moved the country is unfolding. Charlotte Blackwood is desperately trying to contact her 7-year-old stepson, separated from her by his father. Entrepreneur Ethan Blackwood refuses to allow the meeting, remaining isolated on this rural property." The camera focused on Charlotte's supposedly suffering face, who now leaned dramatically on the gate. "I just want to know how he is. Has he been eating properly? Is he taking his allergy medication? He has nightmares when he's away from home. Who's looking after him at night?" Ethan felt his blood boil at the hypocrisy. The allergy medication Leo never needed. The nightmares that began precisely because of her mistreatment. The concern for food coming from someone who deprived him of food. A new vehicle approached, Dr. Maurice's car, which had arrived in record time. The lawyer quickly got out, adjusting his tie, and walked confidently to the small cluster. "Good morning, everyone. Dr. Maurice Peterson, legal representative for Mr. Ethan Blackwood and the minor Leo Blackwood." He addressed the cameras directly with ease. "I deeply regret this media spectacle that aims only to manipulate public opinion. There is an ongoing legal process, with protective measures requested in favor of the child." Charlotte's lawyer tried to interrupt, but Maurice continued with authority. "We have medical and psychological reports that attest to the minor's fragile condition, expressly recommending a controlled and stress-free environment. This invasive approach, with cameras and confrontation, goes directly against the child's well-being, the sole interest that should be preserved at this moment." The reporter, sensing there was a more complex story, pointed the microphone at Maurice. "Mrs. Charlotte's lawyer alleges parental alienation on the father's part. How do you respond?" "I respond that the evidence will tell the truth. The process contains extensive documentation about the physical and psychological condition in which the minor was found. Our only goal is to protect a vulnerable child. This media mobilization serves only to pressure and intimidate, not to seek justice." Charlotte, realizing the narrative was slipping from her control, intensified her crying. "I just want to see my boy, the son I raised with so much love." At that moment, a police car slowly approached. Someone, probably the security guards themselves, had alerted the local authority. A sergeant got out of the vehicle, calmly assessing the situation. "What's going on here?" "We received a report of disturbance." Maurice stepped forward. "Sergeant Stone, we are facing an attempt at unauthorized contact with a minor under a protective order. I have here the judicial documentation that proves the situation." He handed a folder to the officer. While the sergeant examined the documents, Dr. Raphael tried to argue. "My client is legally married to the child's father. She has legitimate visitation rights, which will be determined by the judge at next week's hearing," Maurice completed. "Until then, the minor remains under the sole custody of the father, according to the preliminary injunction." The sergeant, after examining the papers, addressed the group. "Gentlemen, this is a judicial matter that should be resolved in the courts, not with this type of approach. I ask the TV crew to withdraw, as they are on private property without authorization. As for the others, I suggest you respect the ongoing legal process." Charlotte, seeing her plan crumble, attempted one last dramatic appeal. "You don't understand. Leo needs me. He has a special bond with me." "Mrs. Blackwood," the sergeant intervened firmly, "if you insist on this approach, I will be forced to file a report for contempt of court order." The TV crew, realizing the story was taking an unexpected turn, began to retreat. The reporter, however, seemed genuinely intrigued by the developments. "Dr. Maurice, you mentioned medical reports. Can you explain further?" "I cannot go into specific details out of respect for the minor's privacy, but I confirm that there are extensive medical and psychological reports documented in the process. The truth will come to light at the appropriate time, in the proper forum, the court, not a media circus." Momentarily defeated, Charlotte was escorted back to her vehicle by her lawyer. Before leaving, however, she cast a cold glance at Ethan. A brief moment when the mask of fragility fell, revealing the calculating coldness Leo so feared. When everyone had left, Ethan finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Morris. Your arrival was providential." "This was just the beginning, Ethan. She's desperate, which makes her dangerous, but also predictable." The lawyer smiled discreetly. "And she just gave us a significant advantage." "What do you mean?" "This theatrical approach, with cameras and all, will be viewed very negatively by the judge. Trying to use the media to exert pressure in a case involving a minor is considered extremely unethical in the legal community." "Furthermore," he added, showing his phone, "Richard discreetly filmed the entire scene. The moment she shifts from feigned fragility to contained anger will be particularly interesting for our defense." Back at the house, they found Leo having breakfast with Mrs. Eleanor, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded at the property gate. "Dad, Granny made cornbread cake." "Can I have 2 slices?" Ethan smiled, relieved by his son's preserved innocence. "Of course, champ." While Leo savored the cake, Ethan and Morris gathered on the veranda to discuss the next steps. "The hearing has been moved up to the day after tomorrow," the lawyer informed. The judge considered the urgency of the situation. "This is positive for us. The less time Charlotte has to manipulate the public narrative, the better. And if she tries something else before then, the security guards will remain 24 hours. Furthermore, Sergeant Stone is a man of integrity." I briefly explained the situation, and he guaranteed regular patrols on the access road. "But most importantly, Ronald achieved something extraordinary last night." Maurice showed a video on his tablet. In it, Leo's former nanny, Julia Miller, gave a detailed testimony about what she had witnessed at the Blackwood household. Charlotte locking Leo in his room for hours, serving minuscule portions of food while claiming concern for childhood obesity, hiding toys and prohibiting normal activities like running in the garden. Julia was afraid of reprisals, but when she learned of the current situation, she decided to speak. We also have the deposition from Leo's teacher, confirming that he frequently arrived at school tired, hungry, and increasingly withdrawn. And the boy's previous pediatrician will also testify. She had noticed the weight loss and questioned Charlotte, who claimed a special diet prescribed by a nutritionist who never existed. Ethan felt a mixture of relief and anguish. Relief at finally having concrete evidence, anguish at realizing how many people had noticed Leo's suffering, while he, the father himself, remained blind. What else did Ronald discover about her finances? Says a revealing pattern. While restricting everything for Leo, from food to adequate clothing, she maintained exorbitant expenses for herself. In the last 2 months, while Leo wore school uniforms from the previous year, already too small for him, Charlotte spent over £80,000 on jewelry. While claiming that organic food is too expensive to justify the minuscule portions she served the boy, she spent £15,000 monthly on aesthetic treatments. "Monstrous," Ethan murmured, "and there's more." We discovered she had been preparing this scenario for a long time. We found records of consultations with 3 different lawyers specializing in divorce over the past 6 months. Always when you were on business trips, she was planning something, probably a lucrative divorce, and Leo was just an obstacle in her plans. The afternoon passed with relative tranquility. Leo spent hours playing in the garden with Bolina, building a wooden playhouse with the help of Richard, the security guard who revealed woodworking talents. Watching him like this, free, laughing, finally behaving like a 7-year-old child, reinforced Ethan's determination to protect him at all costs. That evening, after putting Leo to bed, Ethan received a surprising call. It was the reporter who had been at the property that morning. "Mr. Blackwood, I apologize for the direct contact. I'm Vincent Carver from Current Affairs TV. I got your number from a source I prefer not to reveal. What do you want? Haven't you caused enough confusion today? Actually, I'm calling because I believe I was used in a media manipulation. After we left there, I did some digging on my own. I spoke with a former employee of your house, who told me a very different story from Charlotte's version." Ethan remained silent, surprised by the turn. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm an investigative journalist by training, although I'm on this variety show to pay the bills. I don't like being an instrument of lies, especially when they involve a child. I'd like to hear your side of the story, off the record if you prefer. Why should I trust you?" "Because I didn't air the material we recorded today. I told production I had technical issues. In truth, I refuse to participate in that theater. Ethan reflected for a moment. I'll consult my lawyer and call you back. Maurice, consulted immediately, was cautiously optimistic. Vincent Carver has a solid reputation in investigative journalism. He worked for major outlets before going to TV. If he's truly willing to investigate thoroughly, he could be an important ally in balancing the public narrative. 2 hours later, after careful checks, Vincent was authorized to enter the property alone, without cameras, just with an audio recorder. In the house's library, Ethan shared the true story, showing the medical and psychological reports, without exposing details that could further weaken Leo. "This is far more serious than I imagined," the journalist said, visibly impacted. "The story Charlotte is selling is completely fabricated. My only concern is to protect my son. I don't want to use the media as a weapon, as she is doing. I understand and respect that. For that very reason, there are no images of Leo in the article, nor details that could identify or embarrass him in the future." That night, Ethan had difficulty sleeping again. The hearing was approaching, and with it, the definitive confrontation with Charlotte. In the next room, Leo slept peacefully, oblivious to the battles fought in his name. In his sleep, he murmured soft words, hugging the new teddy bear his grandmother had given him. No nightmares, no fears, just the well-deserved rest of a child who finally felt safe. The Royal Courts of Justice in London were bustling that Wednesday morning. Ethan arrived early, accompanied by Dr. Maurice and his entire legal team. As a security measure, Leo had remained in Amersham with Mrs. Eleanor and one of the security guards. Although the boy's presence might eventually be requested by the judge, everyone agreed that sparing him from this initial confrontation was essential for his well-being. "Are you prepared?" Maurice asked as they walked through the solemn corridors of the courthouse. "As much as I can be," Ethan replied, adjusting his tie. He had chosen a sober suit without ostentation, nothing of the powerful entrepreneur, just a father concerned about his son. The courtroom was practically empty, with restricted access due to the presence of a minor in the proceedings. Only the directly involved parties, their legal representatives, and professionals designated by the judge could participate. Charlotte arrived exactly on time, escorted by her lawyer, Dr. Raphael Carter, and 2 more legal assistants. She was dressed with discreet elegance, without flashy jewelry, a carefully constructed image of sobriety and seriousness. Her eyes, however, revealed a calculating coldness when they met Ethan's. The judge, Judge Paul Mitchell, entered the room. At 58, with a respected career in the family division of the High Court, he was known for his meticulous analysis and focus on the well-being of minors. After the initial formalities, he began the session. "We are here to analyze a delicate situation involving the minor Leo Blackwood, aged 7. Before hearing the parties, I want to make it clear that any attempt to turn this process into a media spectacle will be severely punished. I have received reports of inappropriate approaches involving the press, which I consider deeply regrettable when it concerns the well-being of a child." The judge's stern gaze seemed to fix momentarily on Charlotte, who maintained an impassive expression. "We will begin with the case presentation by the petitioner, Mr. Ethan Blackwood." Dr. Maurice rose with confidence. "Your Honor, we are facing a serious case of neglect and psychological abuse against a minor. My client, upon returning from an international business trip, found his son in an alarming state, malnourished, psychologically fragile, and living under constant emotional threat. With clinical precision, the lawyer presented Dr. Lucy's medical reports, Dr. Beatrice's psychological reports, and the testimonies of key witnesses. The neighbor who secretly fed Leo, the former nanny, the school teacher. The minor was subjected to a systematic regime of deprivation, nutritional, emotional, and social. While suffering basic restrictions, Mrs. Charlotte Blackwood maintained a luxurious lifestyle, using financial resources intended for family well-being exclusively for her own benefit. The evidence was presented methodically. Photographs of Leo's physical state when he was found, compared with previous photos showing his gradual decline, school records documenting frequent absences, and a drop in performance. Security camera recordings showing Charlotte locking the pantry and kitchen with a key. I particularly highlight, Your Honor, The nutritional report confirming significant weight loss and vitamin deficiencies, consistent with prolonged food restriction. And most seriously, the psychological reports documenting emotional trauma resulting from isolation and constant threats. Dr. Raphael, representing Charlotte, tried to interrupt several times, protesting against what he called sensationalist, unfounded allegations, but was restrained by the judge, who insisted on carefully analyzing each piece of evidence. When it was his turn, Charlotte's lawyer adopted a different strategy. "Your Honor, what we see here is an attempt to demonize a dedicated stepmother who was merely trying to impose healthy boundaries on a spoiled child. My client, concerned about the minor's inadequate eating habits, implemented a balanced nutritional routine, perhaps rigorous but necessary. As for the supposed isolation, it was merely appropriate discipline for a child who exhibited challenging behaviors." The judge interrupted. "Do you have any medical documentation to support this balanced nutritional routine? Did a nutritionist prescribe this regime?" The lawyer hesitated. "Not formally, Your Honor, but..." "And what about the records of prolonged isolation? Did any child behavior professional recommend this approach?" Again, no concrete answer. "Proceed," the judge said, his expression revealing skepticism. Dr. Raphael changed his approach, then focusing on attacking Ethan's parental capacity. The petitioner, a constantly absent entrepreneur, delegated his son's care to third parties for years. His long and frequent international travels demonstrate a prioritization of his career to the detriment of the child's well-being. By this point, Ethan found it difficult to control his indignation, but he remained composed, following Maurice's guidance. Furthermore, Charlotte's lawyer continued, "We question the petitioner's mental sanity. After returning from his last trip, he demonstrated erratic behavior, kidnapped his own son without any explanation, prevented any contact between my client and the minor, and hid in a remote location. This clearly characterizes parental alienation. It was then that Maurice made a strategic move. Your Honor, I would like to present an additional testimony recorded yesterday. With the court's permission, I believe it will be clarifying." With permission granted, a video was displayed on the courtroom monitors. In it, Martha Allen, Charlotte's former personal assistant, recounted disturbing details. Mrs. Charlotte openly said that Leo was an impediment to her plans. When Mr. Ethan traveled, she completely changed her behavior. I witnessed her shouting at the boy several times, telling him he was a burden to his father. Once I heard her on the phone with a friend, commenting that she was just waiting for the right moment to convince Ethan to send his son to a boarding school abroad, because children hindered her freedom. The testimony continued, recounting how Charlotte manipulated appearances. She organized elaborate parties for Leo when she knew they would be photographed for social media, but cancelled simple outings that he would actually enjoy. She bought expensive toys that remained untouched, merely for display, while preventing the boy from having normal activities like riding a bicycle in the garden. The most disturbing thing, Martha concluded, was how she maintained two completely different personas, the perfect stepmother when Ethan or important visitors were present, and a cold and negligent person when they were alone. Leo learned to live in a constant state of alert, trying to guess which version of Charlotte he would encounter at any given moment. At the end of the video, a heavy silence filled the room. Charlotte, for the first time, appeared visibly shaken, whispering furiously with her lawyer. The judge consulted some documents and then made an announcement. Considering the complexity of this case and the serious accusations presented, I determined that the minor be evaluated by a multidisciplinary team designated by the court. Until the conclusion of this evaluation and the final judgment, I maintain sole provisional custody with the father, Mr. Ethan Blackwood. He then turned to Charlotte. As for the request for visitation, considering the psychological reports already presented that indicate emotional suffering of the minor associated with the presence of the respondent, I determine that any contact, if authorized in the future, be supervised by a professional designated by the court. Dr. Raphael tried to protest, but the judge was firm. This decision aims solely at the child's well-being, while we ascertain the veracity of the accusations. If the allegations against Mrs. Charlotte do not prove true, The restrictions will naturally be reviewed. But for now, the principle of precaution prevails. As they left the courthouse, Ethan felt simultaneously relieved and exhausted. The battle was far from over, but the first significant victory had been won. "We've achieved the essential for now," Maurice commented. "Leo remains under your sole custody, protected from any unsupervised contact with her." In the parking lot, they were surprised by Vincent Carver, the journalist who had promised an ethical approach to the case. "Mr. Blackwood, my investigative report will be published tomorrow. I interviewed several independent sources, including health and education professionals. I believe I have managed to present a balanced overview, focused on facts, not sensationalism." "Thank you for your integrity," Ethan replied. "My only concern has always been to protect my son." "I understand and respect that. For that very reason, there are no images of Leo in the article, nor details that could identify or embarrass him in the future." As he drove towards Amersham, Ethan received a call that left him perplexed. It was Sarah McLean, the housekeeper for an important London socialite. "Mr. Blackwood, we don't know each other personally, but I feel I need to speak with you, sir. Charlotte worked as a companion for my employer before meeting you. She was never a marketing director, as she claims. She completely forged her resume." "What do you mean?" "She was known in my employer's circle for getting close to influential men. Her history with you is not the first. There was another entrepreneur before, with a small child too. It ended turbulently, with serious accusations that were hushed up with a significant financial settlement." Ethan felt a chill. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I saw Mrs. Charlotte on television, posing as a victim, talking about that boy as if she truly cared. I couldn't remain silent. I have documents, photos, proof of who she really is." Upon arriving at the country estate in Amersham, with this new and disturbing information, Ethan was greeted by Leo, who ran to the gate with Bolina beside him. "Dad, Granny said you won, that I can stay here with you." Ethan hugged his son tightly, lifting him into his arms. "Yes, son, you're staying with Daddy. Always. And she won't take me away?" "Never again, Leo, I promise." That night, while Leo slept peacefully, Ethan, Mrs. Eleanor, Dr. Morris, and Ronald gathered to discuss the new revelations about Charlotte's past. "This changes everything," Maurice commented. "If we confirm that she deliberately forged her professional identity and hid her history, we will have an even stronger case." Ronald was already in contact with Sarah McLean to obtain all the promised documentation. According to preliminary information, the financial settlement from the previous case was recorded as consulting for an offshore company. "We are tracking the payments. I can't believe I was so blind," Ethan lamented. Mrs. Eleanor squeezed her son's hand. "You saw what she wanted you to see. Manipulators are experts at that. The important thing is that you opened your eyes in time to protect Leo." On the other side of the city, in her luxury apartment in Kensington, Charlotte faced her own devastating revelations. Vincent Carver's report had leaked early on some digital platforms, meticulously dismantling her fabricated narrative. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing, but it was no longer influential friends offering support, but rather journalists eager for comments on the now public accusations. Her facade began to crumble. The carefully constructed image of a dedicated stepmother and perfect wife was unraveling, revealing the truth behind the mask. And as she stared at her reflection in the mirror, she realized that the battle she had started was about to turn devastatingly against herself. At the country estate in Amersham, under a starry sky, Ethan watched Leo sleeping peacefully. The boy had finally regained the sparkle in his eyes, his spontaneous smile, the confidence to play and express himself. There was still a long way to go. Therapy sessions, rebuilding self-esteem, full recovery of physical health. But the first and most important steps had already been taken. The truth, like a resilient plant, had found its way to the light, breaking through the darkness of lies and manipulations. And in this new dawn, father and son could finally breathe free without fear, building together a future where true love, not appearances, would be the foundation of everything. 6 months had passed since the turbulent hearing that definitively changed the course of Ethan and Leo's lives. Spring arrived in Amersham, covering the estate's gardens with colorful flowers, and filling the air with soft perfumes. The old Blackwood family property, once just an occasional retreat, had become a true home. That sunny Saturday morning, Ethan watched from the veranda as Leo, now with a healthy physique and radiant expression, helped Mrs. Eleanor pick strawberries in the garden they had planted together. The boy ran, gesticulated animatedly, called his grandmother to show her each discovery, normal behaviors for a 7-year-old who finally felt safe and loved. "The transformation is remarkable," commented Dr. Beatrice, who had arrived for another of the fortnightly sessions with Leo. In the first few months, consultations were weekly, but consistent progress had allowed them to be spaced out gradually. "He's practically unrecognizable compared to that frightened boy I met 6 months ago." Ethan smiled, feeling that mixture of joy and gratitude that had become frequent in his life. "Sometimes I still find myself waiting for him to ask permission to eat or play. But those moments are increasingly rare. The trauma doesn't disappear completely, Ethan. It transforms, integrates into one's life story. The important thing is that Leo has developed resilience and is building positive memories that counterbalance the negative ones." Life had changed drastically for the Blackwood family. After the public scandal involving Charlotte, which culminated in the annulment of the marriage and civil lawsuits for fraud and moral damages, Ethan decided to completely restructure his priorities. The first and most significant change was the definitive move to Amersham. The mansion in Richmond Hill, laden with painful memories for Leo, was sold. The family's country estate, previously used only on occasional weekends, was renovated to become a permanent residence, retaining its rustic charm, but with modern amenities that allowed Ethan to work remotely when necessary. "Dad, look how many strawberries we picked." Leo came running, holding a basket overflowing with red fruits. "Granny said we can make jam." "They're beautiful, son." "It's going to be the best jam in Amersham." Leo smiled, proud, and ran back to his grandmother. His physical recovery was practically complete. The appropriate weight for his age, inexhaustible energy, rosy cheeks replaced the extreme thinness and apathy from before. Most importantly, his emotional recovery was consistently advancing. "He rarely mentions Charlotte now," Ethan commented to the psychologist. "In the first few weeks he had frequent nightmares. Now when the subject comes up he seems almost detached. It's a healthy coping mechanism. Leo is building a new life narrative where that painful experience is just a chapter that's behind him, not the central theme of his story." The second major change in Ethan's life was professional. After years of constant travel, expanding his businesses globally, he decided to restructure the company to allow for more presence in his son's life. He delegated international responsibilities, strengthened his executive team, and implemented a hybrid work system that allowed him to be home most of the time. "How are the birthday party preparations going?" asked Dr. Beatrice. "Full steam ahead. Leo is thrilled about the astronaut theme. We built a cardboard rocket together in the barn, and Mrs. Eleanor is making a Milky Way-shaped cake." Leo's 8th birthday, which would take place the following week, symbolized much more than a simple age celebration. It represented the closing of a painful cycle and the definitive beginning of a new phase. It would be the boy's first big party since the traumatic events, gathering his new friends from the local school, neighbors from Amersham, and the people who had been fundamental in his recovery. After the session with Dr. Beatrice, which took place in the library transformed into an office, Ethan received a call from Dr. Maurice. "Good news. Ethan, the judge issued the final decision. Sole and permanent custody of Leo was granted to you, without any visitation rights for Charlotte. Furthermore, she is prohibited from making any kind of contact with the minor until he turns 18. Ethan felt an enormous weight lifted from his shoulders. Although sole provisional custody had already been guaranteed for months, the final decision brought the legal security he so desired for Leo. And what about the other lawsuits? They are also progressing favorably. The fraud lawsuit is practically won, considering the irrefutable evidence we gathered about her false professional identity. As for the claim for moral damages, it is still ongoing, but the prospects are excellent. The money doesn't matter to me, Maurice. I just want to ensure she can never do this to another family again. And we succeeded. The public exposure of the case, especially after Vincent Carver's investigative reports, completely destroyed her reputation in the social circles she so valued. According to our sources, she is leaving the country. Apparently, she received an offer to work in Europe. Upon hanging up, Ethan felt a strange combination of relief and melancholy. There was no joy in anyone's misfortune, even someone who had caused so much suffering. But there was a deep sense of justice served, and most importantly of security finally established. In the garden, Leo and Mrs. Eleanor now played with Bolina, who chased a ball thrown by the boy. His son's spontaneous laughter was the most beautiful music Ethan could hear, a sound that had been absent for so long and now filled the property daily. "Dad, come play with us," Leo waved, calling him to join the game. Without hesitation, Ethan left the papers on the table and ran to the garden. These were the priorities now: to be present, to participate, to build happy memories. The ambitious entrepreneur still existed, but now shared space with something much more valuable: a completely dedicated father. That afternoon they received a visit from Ronald, who, besides being an investigator, had become a close family friend. He brought a mysterious box that immediately captured Leo's attention. "What's in there?" the boy asked, curious. "A special surprise for an almost birthday boy," Ronald replied, winking. Inside the box was a semi-professional telescope, the perfect gift for a boy fascinated by astronomy. "Wow. Is it real?" Leo's eyes sparkled with excitement. "It is. And tonight, if the sky stays clear like this, we can set it up and observe the stars. What do you think?" Leo hugged Ronald tightly, then ran to show the gift to his grandmother. The ease with which the boy now showed affection and enthusiasm was further proof of his emotional recovery. "Thank you, Ronald. You can't imagine how much this means to him." "I can imagine," the investigator replied, watching Leo run across the garden. "You know, Ethan, in 15 years in this profession, I've investigated hundreds of cases, many involving children in difficult situations. But I rarely see such a complete happy ending as this one." That night, as promised, they set up the telescope at the highest point of the property. Leo, wearing rocket-print pajamas that Mrs. Eleanor had bought especially for the occasion, could barely contain his excitement as Ronald patiently explained how the device worked. "Look, Dad, you can see the moon's craters." Ethan approached, observing through the telescope. "Amazing, isn't it? Imagine how much we still have to discover in the universe. When I grow up, I want to be an astronomer," Leo declared with conviction. "Or an astronaut, or both." "You can be whatever you want, son. The sky is not the limit, it's just the beginning." Later, after putting an exhausted but radiant Leo to bed, Ethan found his mother on the veranda, contemplating the same stars that had so enchanted her grandson. "You seem at peace." "Son," Mrs. Eleanor observed, "I am, Mum. For the first time in a long time, I am truly at peace. You know what moves me the most? To see how you transformed something so painful into such a beautiful new beginning. Many would have sunk into bitterness, into guilt. But you chose to rebuild." Ethan reflected on the path traveled. "I had no choice. Leo deserved a new beginning. We needed to turn this page together." The company continued to prosper, now with a more balanced management. Ethan had implemented well-being policies for employees with children, inspired by his own experience, and had started a foundation dedicated to protecting children victims of emotional neglect, a type of abuse often invisible, but deeply destructive. The following week, Leo's birthday was exactly what he deserved, a vibrant celebration of childhood, friendship, and possibilities. The estate's garden was transformed into a small space station, with the cardboard rocket as its centerpiece. Children from the new school, Amersham neighbors, and everyone who had been important in his recovery journey, Dr. Lucy, Dr. Beatrice, Dr. Maurice Ronald, Mrs. Davies, the neighbor who first fed Leo in the estate, and even Vincent Carver, the journalist who helped reveal the truth. During the party, as Leo blew out the candles on the impressive space cake prepared by his grandmother, Ethan felt a deep emotion. His son was smiling, a genuine, carefree, free smile. No longer that restrained, fearful, rehearsed smile he displayed on the rare social occasions allowed by Charlotte. Later, when the guests had already left and Leo was playing with his new gifts, Ethan received an unexpected call from Sarah McLean, the housekeeper who had revealed Charlotte's hidden past. "Mr. Blackwood, forgive me for disturbing you on a Sunday, but I thought you'd want to know. Charlotte departed today for Switzerland. According to information I obtained, she got a job at a luxury jewelry store in Geneva, apparently using documents with another name." "Another name?" "Yes, apparently Charlotte is just one of her identities. I managed to confirm that she has used at least 3 different names in the last 10 years. She's a professional con artist, specializing in approaching wealthy men, preferably with small children." The revelation was disturbing, but curiously, it didn't affect Ethan as it would have months ago. Now it was just information, relevant but no longer capable of shaking the peace he had achieved. "Thank you for informing me. Sarah, I sincerely hope she doesn't cause any more suffering to anyone." Upon hanging up, he looked at Leo, who was enthusiastically assembling a complex Lego set he had received as a gift. His son was safe, healthy, happy. The past could not be changed, but the future was entirely in his hands. 1 year after the fateful return trip that revealed the harsh reality, Ethan and Leo celebrated a significant date, the re-inauguration of the country estate as their permanent home. The property had been completely renovated, respecting its original architecture but adapting it to their new needs. Leo now had a spacious and welcoming room, decorated with space themes, a study area integrated into the library, and an exclusive space for his scientific experiments, his newest interest. The old barn had been transformed into a home observatory, where they spent many nights exploring the sky with the telescope. Ethan had adapted one of the house's wings for his office, from where he managed his businesses remotely most of the time. His trips, now rare, never exceeded 3 days, and Leo was always informed of every detail, with daily calls and constant messages. The school in Amersham had proven to be a perfect choice. Smaller and more welcoming than the elite college in London, it offered personalized attention and a focus on integral development, not just academic, but emotional and social. Leo thrived there, making friends, actively participating in projects, rediscovering the joy of learning. On that special re-inauguration night, as everyone gathered for a dinner lovingly prepared by Mrs. Eleanor, Ethan asked for a moment of attention. "I wanted to thank all of you for being here, not just tonight, but throughout this transformative journey. Every person at this table played a fundamental role in helping Leo and me rebuild our lives." He raised his glass in a toast. "To the family we chose, to new beginnings and to second chances." Leo, sitting between his father and grandmother, smiled broadly. He was no longer that fragile boy hidden in the shadows of fear. He was a vibrant, curious, secure child, as he always should have been. Later, after everyone had left and Leo fell asleep, Ethan found a drawing on his desk, a carefully made artwork by his son, the country estate, with everyone he loved gathered in the garden under a bright starry sky. In the bottom corner, in carefully drawn children's handwriting, a simple message that said it all. "Thank you for finding me." "Dad." Ethan smiled, gently touching the paper. Those words perfectly summarized his journey. Not just Leo's physical location on that terrible day at the neighbor's house, but the true reunion between father and son. The mutual recognition, the genuine connection, the love that overcame obstacles and healed wounds. In the silent house under the starry sky of Amersham, the promise made a year ago was silently renewed. Leo would never again have to beg for attention, for food, for love. Because now, finally, father and son had found what truly mattered, not in material possessions or social status, but in constant presence, in restored trust, in the true family they built day after day. And in that home rebuilt with affection and truth, the future opened like a universe of possibilities. As vast and bright as the stars, Leo now observed freely, without fear, without limits, simply being the extraordinary child he was always destined to be.